Friends of New Zealand First, it is my privilege to introduce a man who needs absolutely no introduction to you. But before I do so, I just want to make a couple of comments. In my political career, which is definitely not as long as our leaders, I've seen a surprising number of political leaders in this country. Of course, some parties tend to have more than others. They tend to have a revolving door policy that spits one out every 2 years in the vain hope that that will be their cure-all to their political woes. But we in New Zealand First are blessed. And perhaps some of the strongest compliments you could ever get are those that you receive from your political opponents, many of whom have described your leader as the most formidable man in the Parliament today and possibly in political history in this country. And we're proud of that. Over the space of the last 2 days, you have had the opportunity to work together as a team, and you probably have noticed a couple of things. Firstly, he was here on time. 8:30 sharp each morning. And he has stayed through the entire conference, participating at various stages. In fact, his passion and determination to take this country by storm in the upcoming election couldn't be better emphasised or evidenced this morning than that impromptu speech that he gave you all, which basically sent you a message that you will have firmly on board, and that is, he is ready to do battle. In military terms, he's been dry cleaned, lightly oiled, and he's locked and loaded. This is the man who will take New Zealand forth in the next campaign and New Zealand to its future. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to give to you the Right Honourable Winston Peters, your leader.
Thank you very much, Ron, Mr. President, my fellow MPs, delegates and observers, ladies and gentlemen. This weekend will be remembered for providing the launching platform to our electoral success in 2005, and you will be the people that make it all happen. You know, at the outset, I want to gratefully acknowledge all of those who work for New Zealand First, all those who unselfishly give their time and talent to support this great endeavour, and I'm asking, as my team is, for you to go home and thank them on our behalf, because we can't see them for a little while. You all can take credit for what this party has achieved, and our thanks go out to each and every one of you, the party members of Parliament, the tightest knit team that any Parliament has seen for a long, long time. And the wider team who support them in Wellington and our various offices and all throughout the electorate. It's important. It's going to be significant in 2005. But I must also thank Roy Townhill and the Tauranga electorate that have kept me sustained all these years. As is usual, we're hearing all the bump from the local opposition in Tauranga about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. But as usual, we will keep our confidence, get on with our job. We won't be playing any personality politics. It's very hard to find a personality in that respect. And we'll tell the people the facts and trust their good sense. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to be proud of what we've accomplished as a party. And we've got to be ambitious for what we can do in the future. We've got to be proud of what we've accomplished. No matter what others say, we have done better than any other political party in the history of New Zealand. Let me tell you why. We went from formation to government in 3 years flat, and no other party could even dream of doing that. And we're going to go back this year, as we go towards December, committed for a great result in 2005. But as someone very famous once said, you ain't seen nothing yet. And looking back over the past year, we can say that New Zealand First is the only party that has raised the real issues that concern all New Zealanders. We've challenged government complacency and incompetence, and we've offered constructive alternatives to the prevailing wisdom, or lack of it, as the case may be. On the foreshore and seabed, on immigration, law and order, and other issues critical to the future of this country, this party, New Zealand First, has provided the only clear and realistic path forward. But today, let's look at the political landscape we face in the approach to the election and point to key areas where we offer radically different policies and solutions to meet the challenges facing our country. Just before doing that, though, it's important to reflect on why New Zealand First is so essential for New Zealand. You know, the speech today by Gilbert Ulrich was very, very informative. It's actually a tragedy that a leading New Zealand businessman who knows clearly what is going on with this country's economy should have so few of the spin doctors aware of what his clear, demonstrably sound message is. If he was giving it in Southern Ireland, they'd all understand. Taiwan, Singapore, they'd all understand. If he was giving it in Scandinavia, they'd all understand. In fact, everywhere in the first world, they would instantly comprehend it. All except in one country, sadly ours. And that's why we're vital to this country and critical for our future. But just during this week, there was a hearing held in Auckland to determine whether 2 Muslim women have to remove their burqas or their veils in an upcoming fraud case. One of them said she would rather kill herself than reveal her face whilst giving evidence. She had, before that of course, taken her veil off to get a driver's license. Now, New Zealand First has a very simple and clear message. And it is this: if you don't like our laws, there are thousands of Kiwis who will willingly take you to the airport, pay your departure tax, and buy you a ticket to the Islamic paradise of your choice. We New Zealanders are sick and tired of having people coming to live here who have no intention of following our laws, our customs, our traditions, and demand instead that it is we who must change. That we make all the concessions to them. And it's typical of the politically correct nonsense that infects our public institutions. The veil wearers should be told in no uncertain terms how the justice system in New Zealand works. If they prefer veiled faces, stoning, beheading, and removal, then there are countries where these practices prevail. And then let's look at another immigration case, or a case of immigration madness. On Thursday, the front page of the Dominion out of Wellington had a feature story entitled migrants despair as officials call for new medical tests. The story is that a Somali immigrant, herself a sickness beneficiary, is having difficulty getting 14 family members into New Zealand. Exactly. Oh dear. Let's be clear. We're not picking on this woman. We're not blaming her. What we are pointing to and have done year in, year out, what we're pointing to is the madness that surrounds New Zealand's immigration policy. Once again, it is New Zealand that is to blame. We're in the dock because officials are demanding DNA evidence of a family connection between the 14 that she, who is a beneficiary, wants to bring to New Zealand. Whether she can prove these people are related is not the real issue. The real issue is the burden placed on New Zealand because we have such loose family reunification rules. And whilst we're at it, this party asks, where in the world would you get away with this? Let some of our critics tell us this. Where on earth could you pull this stunt and have any hope of success? Now, by allowing family reunification as a backdoor into New Zealand, the government has no idea of how big the pool of refugees actually is. They will claim, this government, that it's only letting in 750 refugees per year. But if each of those people in turn creates a liability for another 20, and with extended families, that is easily achieved, the true number is really 15,000. Now that's not a sane immigration policy. That's bailing out the ocean. So the sorry fact of life is that ordinary people are caught between the sorry extreme of two old parties. Minnie Mouse Labour and Mickey Mouse National. I just want to say straight here today, if anybody dreams you're going to see a two-horse race in 2005, that's a commentary of how little you know about politics. That's a commentary of just how little you do know and understand about your fellow New Zealand people. One prediction, though, we can make, and make with certainty, about the next election, and that is that New Zealanders will not give Labour anything remotely like a parliamentary majority. And for many good reasons, such as the immigration nonsense I have just outlined. Labour can't be trusted with a monopoly of power, and that's proved over and over again. You know, at times they sound like National in drag. Mr. Cullen brought in a measure so that he could take the top off the highs and the low off the lows when it comes to our exchange rate. But when he was asked what the top was, he didn't know. And when he was asked what the bottom was, he couldn't answer. And you'll see why that's important, as Gilbert Ulrich pointed out. You see, Labour is a party of gender-bending control freaks. Boy, do they know what's good for you. Now, if you had a good hard look at them, you'd wonder why they'd come to that assumption. But apparently it's all intellectual. They have a deep-rooted authoritarian, we-know-best streak that New Zealanders in growing numbers are coming to view with disgust. Labour Party ministers are all too eager to lay down the law on areas where they are singularly qualified, such as what constitutes marriage, child-rearing, and how the rest of us should all live. Typically their views conform to the prevailing dictates of political correctness and a grave lack of common sense. Instinctively, Labour considers it has the divine right to interfere and control the lives of ordinary people. This tendency to patronize people they deem innately inferior to themselves is one of the less attractive features of Labour's so-called elite. When the voters survey the political landscape at the next election, they will be in the market for what this party that we belong to, in its 11th year, what we call New Zealand First, for sound reasons, has got to offer. We are the only insurance policy against the control freaks of Labour and the piltdown politicians of National. You know, the National Party has been left with so many political dinosaurs that their corpus resembles Jurassic Park. And it's finally dawning on the boys in the back room who run the National Party that they're in a deep hole and that they are threatened with extinction. Just like the Diplodocus, which you remember had a huge body, a long neck, and very little brain. Now the head dinosaur, or should I say dinosaur, as we shall call him, is an amateur politician still driving around with his L plates on. He even makes Jerry Brownlee and Kenny Shipley look good, and that isn't easy. See, after buying a new leader based purely on his CV as a central banker, National are now trying to come to terms with the disappointment he has turned out to be. You cannot, in politics, silk purse a cow's ear. This is a job for experience, for human and economic and social understanding. You've got to have experience amongst your colleagues as well. Not flyboys and spin boys behind them. National thought they were getting a BMW. What they got was a Jap import with a clock round back a few hundred Ks. And you all thought odometer tampering was illegal, didn't you? You know, Don Brash's presence at the helm has not averted what looks like impending electoral doom for National. Every poll since March, as some of us in New Zealand first predicted, went down. The truth of the matter is that National is a spent force already, offering a Stone Age philosophy of market economics found and practiced nowhere else in the world, combined with Maori bashing. Their only policy positions that make any sense are those that they have listed, unacknowledged, straight from New Zealand First website. When we said in 2002, a theme that we had repeated over and over again for a decade, that we'd fix 3 things in 3 years, what did they say about it? What did the new leader then say about it when he got into Parliament? He said it was racist. Didn't he? Don't some of the commentators remember that? But then again, desperate men and desperate parties take desperate measures. They decided they would borrow it. And short of a miracle, National faces a humiliating defeat in 2005. New Zealanders are simply not interested in returning to the failed far-right policies that Don Brash proposes. They know that National has no concern for ordinary New Zealanders, but is in the pocket of big business. You doubt that? Well, if anyone does, what has National said about the insider trading case involving New Zealand Rail exposed just a few weeks ago. What has the National Party said? This party that believes in one law for everybody. Not a mutter, not a murmur, not a syllable, not a sound. You know, New Zealanders believe that a strong New Zealand First is needed to temper the ideological extremism that lurks in both National and Labour. They know that we here, that in our caucus and in our MPs, that we and we alone will keep them honest. Ladies and gentlemen, as a country we face two challenges of critical importance to our future. They are race relations and the economy. The greatest tragedy for New Zealand would be for our future to be blighted by racial discord and division. In the area of race relations, only New Zealand First offers a clear and coherent policy to promote a harmonious and fair society. And I want to be very clear about this. Though others may not admit it, the fact is, when we talk about racial accord, we image it, we reflect it, and we live it. The Treaty of Waitangi, as you know, is an historical document about citizenship in New Zealand. It was meant to bind New Zealanders under one rule of law, but instead it's become a source of division that threatens to generate racial strife for generations to come. Most people accept there is a need to address cases relating to outstanding Maori property rights. These rights were guaranteed to all citizens by the treaty. However, the treaty should not be about forcing a contrived and reinvented Maori culture down the throats of all New Zealanders. Through a process of distortion and misrepresentation, the treaty has degenerated into a source of separatism, cultural safety, and mysticism. A pervasive new ethos has been allowed to infect central and local government. And it happens, and they're never going to be allowed to forget it, because successive Labour and national governments have been inserting Treaty of Waitangi principles in legislation since 1986 without ever knowing or defining what these principles mean. And the National Party thinks it can rise up one day, wash its hands like Jesus' wife, and say, oh, we're changed now. We're different now. Pray tell me this. Why would you trust someone who has created the mess to fix it up? Why would you trust someone who knew so little about what Maori really wanted to fix their future up, let alone the country's? Both Maori and non-Maori have had enough, in my understanding, of the leech that the treaty industry under the old parties has become. The tribunal in its present form is part of the treaty industry and no longer in touch with its basic function of dealing in facts. That's what it was set up to do, deal in facts, way back in 1975. New Zealand First Treaty of Waitangi policy offers a practical solution to ending the grievance industry but safeguarding genuine claims. I won't say any more than this, but I heard the comments of the National Party about the Rotorua Lakes, and they haven't got any idea what on earth it is that they're talking about. This party has not said a word, because we believe the outcome will be acceptable to every fair-minded European and Maori in this country. We offer a practical solution. We're going to remove so-called treaty principles from all legislation, and the tribunal will become a Waitangi Commission, as it should have been as in 1975, that we focus on the original intent of establishing the factual basis of historical claims and making recommendations for speedy resolution. The next election, voters will have a choice of uniting as one nation or going down the path of racial separatism. Because a vote for New Zealand First will be an unambiguous vote to end the treaty grievance industry. Now, in their separate ways, both National Labour display an alarming complacency over the state of the economy. Labour endlessly boasts about its supposed success on the economy, whilst National says conditions are so benign that the government's economic management is no longer, in their view, going to be an election issue. That's true, that's what they said. That's what National said. Conditions are so benign that the government's economic management is no longer an election issue. Well, excuse me. Have you wondered lately why the supposedly strong economy is not making things better for you? Or for that matter, for 80% plus of the people of this country? It's not, your imagination. The government, aided and abetted by the financial journalists and so-called economic gurus, are actively engaged in deceiving you. And so today I want you to look and examine just a few facts to see whether there's any merit in the arguments that they're making. In short, we want an economic reality check. This slide you see there is the comparative GDP per capita with Australia. As you see, we sit at number 25. Number 25 place on the gross domestic product compared to Australia's place at number 11. In the 1950s, we were way ahead of Australia and consistently among the top 5 nations. But it all gets worse. If you deduct from our GDP the amount that is paid in interest and dividends to overseas investors, and that's almost 10 billion annually from our economy every year, and then measure our true wealth per New Zealander, it gets much, much scarier. You see there, the wealth per capita, all of a sudden, we're now ranked at 37 internationally, compared to Australia's 14th. Both countries are losing money from their economies to overseas investors, but in our case you can see it's so much worse. If you go back to slide 2 again, we start off, and Australia is at 11th, and we're at 25th. Go to the next slide. This is per capita earnings per person. What happens? Australia loses 3 points, and we lose a massive 12. And they tell you that they run the economy in a sound way. What this means, of course, if you look at our income gap between New Zealand and Australia, is that we're getting lower wages. There it is. Australians now earn on average $123 a week more than New Zealanders for doing the same job. And the Aussies work much shorter hours for it. New Zealanders work longer hours per week than any other people in the OECD, save Japan. In short, we're running flat out to stand still. It's a fact, and we're not standing still, we're sliding. And they can put on all the spin they like. But there are the bold facts against which you should measure your country's performance. We're running flat out to stand still. And you all know our people are growing more and more time poor. No time for family and friends and community anymore. Flat out working longer hours than any other country, say Japan. So So whilst we're just as productive, we're not getting the rewards. And the real rewards are going to overseas investors. They're getting rich while we increase our debt levels. Now you might ask, how do we cope with this? Well, the simple answer is that for too many years now, we have borrowed too much to try and keep afloat. As Gilbert Ulrich said, when the woman was boasting about all the Mercedes-Benz in Wellington, yeah, but how are we paying for them? And she, the genius, didn't know. So why am I surprised? Why am I not surprised by that? Have a look at our level of indebtedness. That's us, December 95, per person, $12,700. Look what it is now. 31 December 2003, and we're up to the astonishing figure of 26,000. Oh, little Olivia, who they were made so much of in July of 84, she owed 5,000. And so this experiment of 20 years has been a tremendous success, hasn't it? If you happen to be an overseas lender. If you happen to be an overseas lender. The result is that both as a nation and in our individual households, we now owe huge amounts of money abroad. Now, is anyone's head sort of upset now, or does it hurt at the moment? Because to add to our woes, we have the largest ever balance of payments crisis in our history. Our export earnings simply aren't keeping pace with our spending on imports. Compounding the impact of this debt, we also have the highest interest rates in the developed world. So not only is this government forcing you into further debt, its voodoo policies are also increasing interest rates. Our exports are not keeping up with imports, and our high interest rates mean that our dollar is overvalued, so we get less as a result. It hit 70 cents US this week. It's got back a fraction. That'll go much higher than that. And then we'll see what these economic geniuses like Cullen and Brash, then we'll see what they've got to offer when that happens. You know, this is a country that went through the last 20 years boasting about the formation and the passing of legislation to make everything transparent and clear in the economy. The Fiscal Responsibility Bill, even to the local government level. But they will never put out legislation showing the contrast between our performance as a nation and Australia, Southern Ireland, Singapore, or Scandinavia. If they ever did, then you'd see these polls turn upside down immediately. And New Zealanders would understand just how badly we're doing. Why is it that the average Maori in Australia earns more than the average European in New Zealand? What does that tell you? It tells you the last 20 years are years of failure. But of course, because they've had so many cheerleaders, they could never admit that. But let them please explain these figures to you and keep on telling you that we're living through a boom. Now, the good news is that these problems need not be terminal if they're confronted now. And we as a party, New Zealand First, have a long-term plan to deal with this crisis. We have a detailed plan for buying back the family silver after the next election. You know, just let me ask you this. Why would you start a savings policy and then plant billions of dollars overseas, propping up somebody else's economy, whilst you buy even bigger billions at high interest rates, trying to maintain your own? Go and ask Lee Kuan Yew what he would think of that genius as a policy. Go and ask the Minister of Finance in Taiwan what he would think of that sort of policy, or any other first world nation for that matter. We've got a detailed plan for buying back the family silver at the next election. It doesn't take the form of some sort of crude foreign-owned asset takeover. Overseas owners need have no fear their assets will be stolen off them. But we'll be putting international investors on notice that New Zealand is done with selling its prime assets at giveaway prices. We're going to put an end to the notion that this country is a soft touch, easy pickings, and a place to loot. You saw that Powerco sale down in New Plymouth recently. I've never seen something so farcical. And they even threw in junk bonds to boot. And they even threw in an insult. They said, you can have your junk bonds redeemed for its nominal price if you're a foreign investor, but not if you're a New Zealander. But not if you're a New Zealander. You know, this country has been exporting jobs and importing people. No other nation on earth does that. Unlike national labour, we are not into fawning adulation of all things foreign. We will welcome real investment that results in new productive assets and capacity and more jobs, but simply swapping a New Zealand-owned business for a foreign-owned control gains us nothing and costs us everything. We will not allow control of our key assets and infrastructure to lie in the boardrooms of London, New York, Geneva or Tokyo. A major mechanism will be to ensure that the superannuation fund that we helped establish as a party focuses on rebuilding the New Zealand-owned state in key industries and infrastructure. We're committed to reversing the loss of existing assets into foreign ownership, and we will ensure that New Zealand retains a strategic stake in core assets, like power companies and transport systems. Tell me, how does it benefit us that the added value componentry of transport should go to foreign ownership? How exactly does that benefit an economy? For the sake of future generations, we can't continue this policy of allowing our best assets to pass into foreign hands and to stay there. Both national labour, as you well know, are guilty of flogging off the best parts of New Zealand. And we alone, New Zealand first and apart, we say New Zealanders must own their own country. You know, 2005 is going to be a year of truth. And unlike national, we'll be carefully scrutinising the government's economic policy. For we know that the outlook with respect to the economy is not right. The sharp rise in the price of oil is certainly going to have an adverse impact on economic growth internationally. When that happens, people will more and more refuse to accept that there is a boom. More and more they'll believe that the so-called boom is really a facade. And if things turn ugly on the economic front, the boardrooms of New York, Sydney and London won't give a damn about our fate. That's New Zealand's first position now. Unlike the others, who will try and pick the eyes out of politics if something should eventuate. We're saying it now. We're saying the economy is a failure now. We believe we can prove it. And we're going to set out to do something about it after the next election. The state of our economy is such that we can't afford a proper defence force. We can't afford an adequate police force. If you dial 111, you get a taxi. We have longer hospital lists, waiting lists now than there ever was when Labour came to power in 99. Why, we've even got, as Ron Mark pointed out to me, a group of medical professionals in Christchurch raising funds for a charity hospital. This under a Labour government. Why a charity hospital? Because they can't afford to get, not getting hospital care now. This under Helen Clark and a Labour government that says it stands for the ordinary New Zealander. We have longer hospital waiting lists than in 99. Sickness benefit numbers have soared. Plane loads of patients travel to Australia for cancer treatment. The state of our economy is such that our roading infrastructure is neglected all over New Zealand. Parents are paying twice for state education, and student debt has become a scandal. The state of our economy is such that pensions have fallen way below the level that many retired can live on. And all this has happened under the highest collection of taxes in New Zealand's history. So we've got plenty to shoot for in 2005. Now there's a lot of water to go under the bridge between now and the election. And there'll be surprises, unforeseen events, even some fireworks. But whatever occurs between now and the election, one thing is certain. New Zealand First is going to shock its critics again. And we are sounding a warning for Labour and for National. There is going to be a real election campaign in 2005. A real election campaign. Look at the United States and look at Australia in the last few months. Look at Kerry and Bush, Howard and Latham. There in those countries, political leaders are out on the hustings every day, 4 to 6 public meetings. There they know that politics is about people and issues. And we in New Zealand First challenge Helen Clark and Don Brash to come out into the open so that we can see the whites of their eyes. No more hiding in rooms in Parliament, waiting for a stage-managed event or a photo opportunity. Get out and campaign as every other democracy expects a campaign to happen. Out on the streets and with the people. Not in front of tired audiences, all trapped there because there's some invitation. Get out and campaign amongst ordinary New Zealanders as this party does. Come out of hiding. Come out with us on the streets, the halls, and the sports ground. You see, why is it that National and Labour are so scared to front up? It's because their leadership image is built by spin doctors, media minders, and marketing gurus. With all that help, they're still scared to front up. You know, real people know you can't hide weak leadership behind slogans. You can't hide weak leadership and indecisiveness behind slogans. And we in New Zealand First are not going to let them get away with it. You know, people are looking for that rare commodity in politics, common sense and strong leadership. And they get both from New Zealand First. People know that we are beholden to no one. We are not in the pocket of big business, the unions, or any other special interest group. unlike other parties, a vote for New Zealand First is not a vote for Labour or a vote for National. It is a vote for New Zealand First. We make no apologies for setting our own agenda, and that is to restore our country to its former greatness, where we can pay our own way and leave a prosperous, unspoilt nation for our children and their children yet to come. Personally, I'm excited about the prospects of 2005. I'm a leader that is lucky to be leading a parliamentary team more cohesive, more united, more focused than any other party in Parliament. We've got spokesperson after spokesperson who knows more and can do more and is better than any other person in Parliament in that area. We've got spokesperson after spokesperson who fits that bill. We're getting fit. We are. We're getting ready for 2005 because 2005 will be remembered in our history as a country as a year that New Zealanders took the ownership of their country back. Politics is a difficult business, you know, and requires an enormous amount of work, as we all know here. And it's a voluntary business for nearly all of you. We're grateful in New Zealand First for your help and your contribution and your work, and for the quality of loyalty and courage to defend this party that has never changed its principles and its policies in 11 long years. We're grateful for that. But make no bones about it, if you and I, all of us, don't together do this in 2005, then hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders are going to have their lives continue to be blighted by the incongruity of failed policies, both economic and socially. Their only hope is you and me. That's the only chance they've got next year. You and me. So let's commit ourselves to change the country's history in 2005, to take our country back, and you and New Zealand First will be remembered as the party that made it all happen.